What most people may not realize is that the fire service and a lot of the building codes that we enforce are because we are more reactive, not proactive. So there's been some fires throughout history that have initiated a bunch of these changes. And one of them is going to be like the New York Triangle Fire. That is a fire in New York for an apparel company that was basically had so many workers in there. The hours weren't regulated. There was a fire that happened there, and you had a lot of people perish, but it also sparked 38 separate laws that were passed because of it. And because of all of that, it kind of did kick in some requirements. They decided that when you're that high up in a building, you have that many people in a building, that kind of work going on in a building, that maybe we need to look at mandating fire sprinkler systems throughout certain size buildings for square footage and the use. It also kicked in audible alarms. So fire alarms came out of that. Extinguishers became required to be accessible to all of the occupants. So they had extinguishers, but they were all locked up and nobody could get to them. So this is why when we come in there and say you have to have so many extinguishers, it's so many extinguishers per square footage, per travel distance. And we want them near the doors, and then every 75 feet going into the buildings. Going by the door is when people come and go, they will actually see that extinguisher day in, day out, know that it's there, know how to use it, and then actually have access to it. If you come in and say, well, it ruins my aesthetics, I'd like to hide it, I want it behind the counter, well, now it's not open to all the occupants. And then it also kicked in exits per occupant load. So dependent upon the occupant load for the building, which is all due on square footage and usage of the building, now you get into, we're going to need exit signs, we're going to need, instead of one way in and out, now we're going to need multiple ways in and out. And if you're so many stories high, how do you accomplish that? Do you have a front and rear? Or do you end up having some kind of ladder or something else on the outside of the building like you'll see up in New York? The other one that was nearby would be the Beverly Hills Supper Club. That was May 28th of 1977. That was in Kentucky. 165 deaths, over 200 injuries. That created some more laws for us to actually try to implement. And that's where you get into certain requirements with square footage of a building. You get into rated corridors, you get into number of exits, and a whole slew of other codes that actually, kind of fall into that. So those are basically the kind of things that happen that actually force us to create our fire code and building codes. So when we look at what we have today, you may think, well, we have a small building, it's only 12,000 square foot. We only do this, it's only an office, it's only small storage. Right, it is, but because something happened in the past, that's why we have the codes that we do today. When we get ready to come to your business and do an inspection, take a look around, normally one of the things that we do is we actually look at your business and what's around your business first. One of the first things we're going to look at are nearby hydrants. And what we're doing is we're making sure that we have a hydrant within 500 feet of each other in a business location and within 400 feet of the hydrant to your front door. Those are the requirements for a business area. It's every 300 feet if you're in a residential area. So if you ever think about I got that backwards. So 300 feet in a commercial area, 500 feet in a residential. So if you think about where you live, measure 500 feet from hydrant to hydrant. If you're, say, in one of your businesses, Cross Point Shopping Center or something like that, we should have a hydrant every 300 feet. What are we looking at? Well, we're going to make sure that it's actually in working condition. We're going to make sure that there are nothing blocking it, nothing man-made. So if you have a hydrant that somebody's decided we're going to plant bushes around there, we're going to plant flowers around there because we don't want to look at it, we need 3-foot clearance around the hydrant and leading to the hydrant in order to be able to use it properly. Otherwise, if we can't see it, we can't use it, and it may prolong us trying to get our fire operations under control. Okay, so what a lot of people don't know is fire hydrants are actually maintained by the Montgomery County Water Department. So they come out here, they're in charge of replacing them, they're in charge of repairs, all that kind of things that we get calls on, which is fine. You know, we'll make that phone call. The fire department, what we do, you'll see us out there once or twice a year, maybe flowing hydrants, trying to make sure that we're getting the proper flow out of them. If not, then we call Montgomery County Water Department. They come out and make all the necessary corrections. So what you will see in our jurisdiction, we have yellow hydrants everywhere. Montgomery County owned. Red hydrants, does anybody know what a red hydrant means? Red hydrants mean that they're private. So if you go drive around St. Leonard, you drive around Bethany, and some of these private gated communities, if you see red hydrants, that means they're private. That means that community is responsible for maintaining them, repairing them, replacing them. We'll still go out there and test them, but they're responsible for everything else. What we're also looking at is we can't block our hydrants with anything man-made. We got to be careful when we plant trees. Are we going to be planting them too close to hydrants? What about parking? Are we going to be parking too close to hydrants? What most people don't realize, or they just tend to not pay attention to, is you can't park 10 feet on either side of a hydrant. Now, back in the old days, that we used to sit there and paint that 20-foot, we used to paint it yellow, and which signified no parking, but that's kind of gone to the wayside for the most part. So look at our parking. Again, this is shrubbery that we're planting too close. And so we tend to have this, and we have to go tell people, cut your bushes down, move your cactus, move whatever it is, and try to clear that away for us. Nor do we want you to paint them. This is not about let's look cute. This is not about Ohio State won, so let's paint the hydrant silver and red. Keep them yellow. That's how we identify them. That's how we see them. If you start painting them, they can throw us off, and we may not see it. As we're approaching our building, we get into addresses. Where is it located at? What's the size of it? We need to be able to see it from the road. So imagine yourself being in a fire engine or a medic, trying to race down the road, trying to look for an address. If it's not the proper size, we may miss it. So if you're close to the road, you can get away with a 3-inch by 5-inch number, each number, or larger. If you're further back, now your address may need to be a little bit larger so we can actually see it. And we want it to be in a location that we would normally look. Right now, our guys are geared towards looking at the door, the front door of the business, so maybe the glass above the door, or maybe next to the door, or in the corner top part of the building, closest to the road. Something that our guys can see when they're sitting up that high. These are just examples. So that's on the corner of the building, sits up rather high on the building itself, on the corner, very visible. We wish they'd all be that side, but we know you're not going to do that. Again, on the door, it is the right size. It's 3 by 5 for each number, and it's on the door where we're going to be looking. This is not permitted. We have some people who have tried to change out their address numbers for the words. We don't have time to sit there and try to read everything as we're going by. So it kind of throws us off, and the code doesn't allow that. If you are in a complex where there are multiple businesses and you have rear doors, you are required to put an address on each rear door that belongs to your business. Reason being, we go into a strip center and we think we're entering one business, and we tell an engine to come around back and break into that business. And next thing you know, you think you're breaking into, say, a restaurant. Next thing you know, you're breaking into an apparel company that's next door. We just busted a door we didn't have to because they're not labeled properly. And then we get into fire lanes. If you have fire lanes in front of your building, keep in mind the fire lane is the first 20 feet closest to your building. So you have to let us have that 20 feet so we can have our engines come in and fight fire, or our medics come in and actually help everyone out. They need to be able to, the lanes themselves need to be able to hold the weight of our ladder truck, which is 75,000 pounds. And has to be, the driving surface has to be a firm surface that our trucks won't sink in. So we prefer them paved, but sometimes it's crushed stone, and that's fine too, as long as it can stand up to the weather. Well, once you have established a fire lane, you'll see that you have to actually have signage for all of your fire lanes. And you're required to have a sign every 75 feet. And your fire lane signs are required to be at least, I think it's 7 foot from the top of the driving surface on the wall. Fire lanes are not should not be used, are not allowed to be used for loading zones, drop-off areas, pickup areas, construction parking. So this is one of the things that we see quite a bit. We have a lot of learning centers that are in these strip malls, and they tend to, everybody wants to sit there and pull up in the fire lane, let their kids out or wait for them, and they sit there in 5, 10, 15 minutes thinking that that's okay, and it's not. We prefer, that's what the parking spaces are for. Just go ahead and park. The kids can come out to you, or you can walk in and get the kids when they're done. One of the things that we get a lot of questions about are lock boxes. A lock box is required if your building has a fire alarm system and or a sprinkler system, and there is a possibility that we're going to respond because one of those are going off during a storm, or because there's a fire or something of that nature. That's when they are definitely required. If you would like one, other than that, feel free to reach out and we can tell you how to do all of that. It's actually on knox.com, K-N-O-X. And we need a key to the entrance to the business, as well as to any door inside that's going to be locked. So that way, when it's 2 o'clock in the morning, and we call you up and say, hey, we have an emergency at your location, we're going to go ahead and make entry. So that way we can see if there's anything going on at that time. If there is anything going on at that time, say there's a small fire and a sprinkler put it out, then we can stop the sprinkler system before it does further damage than what it already has. If it's the fire alarm system, we need to make sure that there's no fire before we actually go in there and start turning the fire alarm off. And then we can always update you as to where we are and whether or not you're responding, and kind of go there. And if need be, we can always lock up, put everything right back as if we were never there. This right here is a typical Knox box. This one right here holds about 10 keys in it. These are padlocks. So we have, if you are driving around our jurisdiction, you will notice that we have several construction sites going on right now. Those construction sites that have fencing around it and gates, you will see a Knox padlock on it. That is so if something happens during construction, during the night, or a time that they're not there, well, somebody calls in, we want to respond, we can actually just let ourselves in through the fence, through these padlocks, check everything out, make sure it's okay, lock them up, and leave. If you have a business where you have your building, but you're storing vehicles outside and you're surrounded by a fence, you may want a Knox padlock on it. So if one of your trucks catches on fire at night, we could actually get in there and actually do our job instead of trying to break down half your fence. So for larger facilities, if you have a lot of doors, or if you have multiple buildings, you can also go with a larger Knox box. Some of the businesses that have those are actually car companies, because they also have MSDS sheets, material safety data sheets for us, that can tell us what hazards are in there. gallons of oil, gallons of gas, whatever it is that they have that could be combustible or flammable. So that's actually what you'll see on the right-hand side there, where it says pre-fire plan. They also hold documentation as to additional hazards that we need to be aware of. This right here is a key switch. For those of you, if you have even if on your residence, if you have a personal gate on your residence, then I would recommend you get one of these key switches that meets your jurisdiction. What that will do is that it will allow us it'll keep your gate secure, but it allows the fire department to come in there, open up that key switch, and help you with either a fire emergency or a medical emergency. So on residential gates, what you would normally see is that there's a large red box that took a skeleton key, and that's how we used to get into people's through their gates. Well, with technology, this Knox key switch is definitely a great way to go. Brings everything up to date, and I think most jurisdictions around here use the Knox company anyway. Some of the residential options. This right here is a residential Knox box. We actually have residents who medically need it, or elderly need it, or just want it out of their own safety. And this right here actually fits one key for your front door, and it actually drapes over your front door itself. It doesn't hinder an opening or closing the door. And if you call us, you have a medical bracelet or necklace, and that goes off and we get called out there, we'll be able to go in there and let ourselves in versus trying to break in through your front door. Now, if you'd like to go a little bit cheaper route or an optional route, this right here is just a box that you can buy at any store, any Home Depot, any Lowe's, Ace Hardware. That's a realtor's box, if you guys recognize that. The good thing about that, you set the code and you give the code to whoever you want. So if you want your kids to have it, if you want your neighbors to have it, this is a great way to go. And then what you do is you call into us, let us know, and we will relay all that information to regional dispatch. And if we ever get dispatched out there, they will relay all that information and the combination to us where we can get in without having to break down. So the big difference is this right here, you can give the code to everybody and anybody. The Knox box, the only ones who can get in is the fire department. We're the only ones with a key because it gets keyed per jurisdiction. Now what that means is if you are in Washington Township, Centerville, our key fits only the boxes in our jurisdiction. I cannot go to Miami Township and try to get into their businesses. It doesn't work, and vice versa. So there's a safety feature that's tied into that. Security gates, if you have them, both cannot be installed without the approval of the fire department. And there's also a product out there called Click to Enter. Now the great thing about Click to Enter is that works for both the police and the fire department. So both CPD and MCSO, if you're in our jurisdiction, can actually get in to your gated community if need be, or into your business if you use Click to Enter. So that way, that's the police officers tend to respond a little bit quicker than we do. So if they get there first, there's been times where they've been able to use an extinguisher, put things out before we do, or they've been able to start CPR before we get there, because they're already on the road, whereas we're back at the station most of the time. We're going to make sure that our records are up to date. So some of the things that we're going to ask is we're going to ask for the business name, business phone number, business email address, because with today's technology, once we're done with our report, we're going to email you your inspection report. And then we need emergency contacts, preferably 2 or 3, preferably not related. So if you and your wife run your business, you go on vacation, who's left? So it doesn't do us any good if you're in the Bahamas, we're trying to call you to let know your business on fire, and you're like, well, can't get back until next Tuesday.
So who else is going to be responsible for your business enough to let us in and let us do what we have to do? So they should be trying to ask about that every year that they're in there and trying to keep that updated.
One of the other questions they're going to ask is, do you have a certificate of occupancy? And do we know what a certificate of occupancy is?
So a lot of times when you open up a business, you get an inspection. Your inspection passes.
But it's the certificate of occupancy that allows you to operate.
It allows you to have customers come in and conduct business. So if you don't have a certificate of occupancy, you really shouldn't be operating until the city or the county gives you that, or gives you the okay verbally, knowing it's going to be emailed to you
shortly. Then our inspectors should be asking you for a copy just to make sure everybody's legal, I guess.
The difference is Montgomery County, if you are a B-use group moving into a B-use group, certificate of occupancy carries over. The city of Centerville, they want a certificate of occupancy for every business that comes in, regardless. That way they know who's in the city. And that's what a certificate of occupancy looks like. It's going to tell you basically the construction type. It's going to tell you what the occupant load is, if there's any hazards, and when it all started. And that's kind of what we're looking for. And then we get into door hardware when we get inside. All means of egress door shall be readily openable from the side from which egress is to be made, so basically from inside, without the use of a key or special knowledge. So sometimes we get into discussions about what are we allowed to use and not use. It also states that one motion should release all locks at once. So if you have panic hardware and a deadbolt, if I push on that panic hardware, the panic hardware and the deadbolt have to release at the same time. If not, then that's not permissible.
We've gone into a few places where what you'll see here is they actually put a bar across the back door. It's hooked up from frame to frame into the door. This is the security measure that one of our businesses has tried to use because he feels like it's safer.
They may have been trying to, felt like somebody tried to break in at one point in time. But if you say that somebody tried to break in, I'm going to ask you for a police record. So basically this is not allowed. So you need to make sure that, and what you'll see here in the middle.
Slide bolts are not permitted either.
That's, again, as simple as it may seem, that's special knowledge. But if you've ever been in a building that's filling with smoke and the panic that sets in, you're going to find somebody at that door that just keeps pushing that panic hardware and it's not opening. They're trying to throw their body into it and they panic, and they're going to keep panicking. So that slide bolt is not permitted. Locks, latches, and door handles shall not require tight grasping, tight pinching, or twisting. That kind of goes back to ADA. So that's why more and more you'll see people using levers. It's because with the lever, you can actually just use your hand and push down, and it usually allows you to go right out, or even panic hardware. All elements need to be maintained ready for immediate utilization and free of obstructions. So you can't
store all, delivery comes in, and next thing you know, the delivery starts getting put right there in front of your exit.
A lot of times what we'll also see is right in front of the rear exit, we will see empty boxes. Well, those are going out to the trash. Well, yes, but when? Before or after the accident and the fact that people can't get out? So trash should be taken out as it's accumulated, or have a spot for trash that's not in the actual exit path. If you have a door that can be confused as an exit door, these doors need to be labeled as to what they are for. So is it a fire alarm control panel that's inside? That is required to be labeled. So if you have a fire alarm panel, if you have a sprinkler system, the doors leading to those need to be labeled fire alarm and/or fire sprinkler system. So that way when our crews come in, they're not trying to look through every door that they can, trying to find out how to turn off the sprinkler system. They can go straight to the door that says sprinkler system. Or if they're trying to turn off the fire alarm system, we know exactly which door it is because it says fire alarm system. So you have to make it as easy as possible for us, because usually it's, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. We're kind of awake, kind of not awake, and we need to make it as simple as possible. Electrical room. Electrical room needs to be labeled that it's the electrical room. Okay, we're going to come in there, and if there's a sprinkler system situation going on and sprinklers are going off, we need to be able to shut the electric down so no one gets electrocuted. Or what has happened as well, you have a fire alarm system going off, no apparent reason, we can't get it to reset. We need to know where the electrical room is so we can actually turn off the alarm panel by the breaker and get it to shut down. If you have any repairs or alterations, you're going to remodel your building, you need to make sure that those exits are maintained or have alternative exits out of the building, and that's been approved by us, because there is a travel distance that has to be met, and we need to think about the construction going on as well as how easy and accessible is that exit to all employees. Fire extinguishers. So he touched on fire extinguishers a little bit. Everybody has to have a fire extinguisher in their business. Like I said, we like to start out by the door and work our way in every 75 feet. Normally it's a 2A 10 BC or larger for a regular business. Depending upon what you're doing, what kind of business you're running, what kind of chemicals you have, will determine what kind of extinguisher we have you put in there. Is it going to be a 2A 10 BC? Is it going to be a BC, but we want it to be a 40-pounder? All that kind of plays into what we're doing. Fire extinguishers have to be hung. They can't just be laying on the floor. They just can't be put up on the shelf or on somebody's desk. The top of the extinguisher can't be any higher than 5 feet to the handle, but it's allowed to be as low as 4 inches off of the ground. And the explanation for that is actually kind of old school. It's so when you go to vacuum, your vacuum doesn't hit the extinguisher. So, and if you have hard floors, it's so it doesn't hit the extinguisher. So it's, yeah. The number of extinguishers will depend on the square footage of your space and your tenant layout. So normally it's 1 extinguisher per every 3,000 square foot, but if your layout's a little bit different, or if all of a sudden from the front to back door it's about 70 foot, but you have a door that intervenes there, that's kind of intersects that between the customer side and the employee side, we're going to tell you to put one at the back as well, because they can't see the one up front and vice versa. And again, we start at the main door. And I keep saying that we start at the main door. I don't suppose we have any architects in here. So what tends to happen is the fire department, we want them accessible, like the code says, to all occupants. Anybody who enters that building needs to be able to see it, needs to be able to use it. Architects, because they know we go by 75 feet and every 3,000 square foot as a loose rule, they start from the middle of the building and work their way out. So whenever I review plans, that's what we see, and I have to sit there and tell them, nope, go from the door and work your way in. And instead of 1 extinguisher, now they need 3. So, shown out exceeds 75 feet. We need to make sure that our extinguishers are tagged on an annual basis. And if you look at the right-hand side, you'll see all of that date by. And you think, wow, we can use that same tag,
year in, year out for 20 years. That's not what that is for. So the left-hand side is basically where they're going to punch out a day and time and a month
of when the extinguisher was serviced by a licensed, reputable company registered with the state. They have a state license and they have individual license. You have to have both. But what that's for is every company,
which we realize doesn't happen, should be designating somebody who inspects these extinguishers on a monthly basis. And you're checking to make sure that the gauge is in the green. You're making sure that the nozzle's not dry rotting. You're making sure that the bottle hasn't been dropped and damaged and dented up. And then they put the date and the initial where it says by. So date and by who. So if you look at all the lines that are on there and you do that on a monthly basis, this tag may last 2 years.
So this is actually by the back door. So this is in a warehouse, just to show you that, we have, if need be, we'll tell you to put one by each door, at least 2, front door, back door. Side doors, not necessarily. It's going to depend upon the travel distance. Exit signage, emergency lighting, egress lighting. So normally that's what you'll see, red or green. Either one's permissible. And so exit signs are, this kind of gets into some of it. If your corridor is over 100 feet, exit signs, when are they required? They're required when you have multiple exits. If you are a small business, your occupant loads, say 12, 15, and you only need one exit in and out, you don't necessarily need exit signs. Okay, now if you have more than 50 occupants and you have multiple exits and you have a bigger square footage, now you're going to need multiple exit signs. So you may want to get with your landlord, or if you own a building, your architect, to figure out, are they really needed? And then put those in accordingly, or call us up and we'll tell you if you need them or not. Emergency lighting.
So emergency lighting kind of goes with the exit lighting. If you need one, you kind of need both. You can have those individually, or you can have them put together as one unit.
And how many people do we have that own their own business, buildings? Put them in the bathroom. Awkward as it sounds, put your emergency lights in the bathroom. Nobody likes to be caught there with no lights. And if you've ever been in there with a power outage and all of a sudden everybody's like, whoop, there you go. And then this kind of goes through, so you have interior, exterior discharge elements. So what the code's going to cover, stairwells, is, so what the code's going to cover as well. If you are required to have exit signs, emergency lights by your door, you need an egress light on the outside of your business. Okay, so that way when people go to exit the building when it's dark,
they can see where they're stepping. Otherwise, there's that tripping hazard. I mean, we have packages being delivered all times of the day and night. Sometimes we know they're there, sometimes not.
We have some people who move a little faster than others. So anything could be there to hinder our ability to get out safely to the common sidewalk or the street or the drive. So, but we need to get people out the building and away from the building. So you are required to have a light outside. And it's supposed to be at least one candela at the ground level, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it's enough for you to be able to see where you're going. Extension cords. Extension cords shall not be used as substitute wiring. You can use them temporarily, which means I use it for an hour or two, maybe a couple of days, and then I take it down, put it away.
What we find, we move into buildings, not enough outlets, so what do? We place our desks where we want them and start breaking out the extension cords. We even go so far as extension cords right close by, so we're just going to stick through the wall. So all of this stuff is not allowed. We need to stop doing this. Extension cords, we tend to let them slide around the holiday season, so starting next month, December.
Into January, because we're trying to be festive, we're not trying to be complicated, we're trying to let you enjoy the holidays. But you need to be careful. There are certain things like microwaves, TVs, refrigerators, stuff of that nature, stoves, stuff of that nature that cannot and should not be put on extension cords. If you see it start to fray, replace it, throw it away, take a pair of scissors to it. We see this happening all the time, and people still continue to use, and then they wonder why the fire started. These are all examples of, and actually we've seen quite a few of these. My favorite one is when you get somebody who wants to take a power strip. Power strip cord is not long enough. I'm going to put it into an extension cord, and then I'm going to run it 20, 30 feet to the outlet. Okay, or even the other way around. And then they start plugging everything under the sun that they can. Or you get power strip into power strip. And what people aren't paying attention to or realizing that power strip has 5 outlets. So if I fill those 5 outlets up, and then one of them's another power strip that I'm going to put 5 more things in, that first one was not designed to take the amperage of 10 different devices. So we're starting to overload them, and they're going to heat up. Do not put these under rugs, especially at home. Is we put it under the rug because we don't want it to be a tripping hazard. But as we're in and out of that room, kids in and out, we're rolling things over, whether it be a cart or whatever. What are we doing? We're breaking the wires that are within the actual extension cord itself, which is called the insulation. So without you being able to see it, we're breaking that cord. And eventually what's going to happen is it's going to start a fire. So, and that tends to happen a lot at home. So one instance that we can share real quick, a young lady would sleep with her cell phone on vibrate so her parents wouldn't know it, had it plugged into an extension cord so she could sleep and roll around, and came home to find us in her front yard and her bedroom gone. Because all those nights of doing that and rolling on the extension cord, she broke the wiring of the cord, and actually it started a fire while she was gone. Don't place it under furniture. Sometimes what we do is, I'm just going to put the leg of this chair on it or the leg of this couch on it to hold it down. So that way if something does happen, it's not going too far. So don't do that either. You're doing the same thing. You're going to put weight on it. People are going to sit there. Or if it's actually office files or whatever the case may be, you're going to load that cabinet down with weight of files. It's going to start breaking the wires in that cord. Don't place it across doors. So this is exactly what you will see, but where they put a rug over it so they don't trip. What you should do is this right here. So you can go to Office Max, Office Home Depot, whatever, you can actually find these. These are hard rubber designed to have carts and stuff roll over them and not cause any damage to the actual extension cord or the cord of whatever it is you're using. We should try to use power strips and surge protector. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get you to use something that has a breaker in it that can actually trip, or a fuse. It'll blow the fuse or trip the breaker, letting you know that, hey, maybe we need to not put in that power strip what we have plugged into it. Maybe we're trying to pull too much amperage. It's kind of a warning. Even with our best intentions, things happen. I'm not trying to point things out, but look at the power strips that you're buying. Don't necessarily go for cost. There's a lot of these that have a low cost to them that you think you're going to be able to use come from other countries that don't have breakers or don't have fuses. So you're kind of wasting your money. If you have a larger warehouse and you have a sliding door that cuts off your office space from the warehouse, or one side of the warehouse to the other side of the warehouse because it's a fire-rated wall, And the big roll-up door actually allows you to
move forklifts back and forth. You have to keep in mind that those doors are required to be looked at and tagged on an annual basis.
That's what this is actually pertaining to. And then you get into these double doors. Make sure that they open and close properly. Make sure that you don't have
the outdoor concrete pad that you step out onto
hasn't swollen over the winter. And now all of a sudden you have to throw a shoulder into this door trying to get it open. It should be very easily, a couple of pounds to open it up, let it close. Roll-up doors right here are not exits. They're for your use to bring supplies and whatever you need in and out of in bulk, but they are not considered doors. Man doors are considered doors. If you have a door that is listed, make sure that you can see the listing. A lot of times we go to paint and we have painters come in and they just paint right over that UL label. Or for some reason, we're not sure what it is, so somebody takes off the UL label. And the only way to repair that is to buy a new UL door with the label on it, or to have somebody from Chicago from UL come down and actually verify it and have them relabel it. That gets to be a little expensive. This right here is actually for doors that are required to be door closed, have
stay closed at all times because you're going from one fire area to another. This right here, it's hard to tell, but that's actually on the very top of that, on the door frame.
There's a smoke detector built into that. And so sometimes it's, well, we prop the doors open. Well, we like the ease of being able to go from one side of the building to the next, where our hands are full all the time, or we forgot to close it, or whatever the case may be.
This right here being a smoke detector, when smoke gets near that door, it shuts it for you.
This right here is part of a fusible link.
This is another thing you'll find about some of these overhead doors that have
if it's a fire-rated overhead door, it'll have a chain that goes from the top of the door up as close to the roof decking as possible, and then back down through the wall, and then back down to the other side of the door. And there's actually a fusible link on both sides. So no matter what side of the wall the fire starts, once that fire reaches 165 degrees, that link's going to melt and release and will actually let that door close. And if you have that kind of door, it's required to be inspected and tagged every year. If you have a fire-rated door, you're actually required to put a sign on that door that says fire-rated door, keep closed, or fire-rated door, do not block, depending on what it's actually being used for. So a lot of times you'll see our guys come in and say, please label that door, 1-inch lettering. That's why. What people don't like, do we have any teachers in here? No teachers? So what most people don't realize,
furniture is actually required to have a California rating. So if you don't have the California rating, you're kind of not using the right furniture, which means if a fire does start, it's going to start a little easier and it's not going to stop. This rating right here is designed that once you take the actual flame away from the piece of furniture, it stops, it goes out, self-extinguishes. It's kind of like your mattresses at home nowadays. You buy a mattress, it lights on fire.
It's usually the bedding material that catches on fire, not the mattress itself. The mattress will put itself out once the flame goes away. So, and I asked about the schools. IKEA is not your friend. So IKEA, what we get is we get a lot of teachers, we get a lot of businesses who want to go to IKEA because it looks cute, it's cheaper, we can put it together ourselves, but it's not holding up to the standard. So we go in there and we tell people, you can't have this, you can't have that.
Due to the fact you don't have this rating on.
Again, with teaching, artwork shouldn't cover more than 20% of a wall. This is not. Let's calculate 20%, 20%, 20%, and then put that 60% all at that doorway. So it doesn't work that way. It's each wall is 20%. If you have, depending upon the wall coverings that you have, it depends on whether or not they need to be fire treated or not. So, and we'll get to that. Oh, right here, well, look at this. I don't know if you've ever been anywhere and seen this, restaurants. So because this is big in the beauty salons, the nail salons.
You'll see them take an entire wall and put this kind of stuff up here. You will see restaurants trying to split restaurants by using this kind of material. The question is, where'd you get it from? And usually 9 out of 10 times, they didn't buy the more expensive kind, which is actually flame retardant. They bought the cheapest, which will go up quicker than you can imagine. So we have actually obtained some of this and used it on our burn tower and put it to the test, and it was gone within a couple of minutes, but even that.
So, and then you have businesses, restaurants that actually have hood suppression systems. I'm not going to get into all of this. We need to make sure we go in there and we look at the placement of the equipment underneath the hood.
We look at the actual nozzles themselves. So you see there's 3 nozzles under both the equipment. Each piece of equipment is designed to have a very specific nozzle over it, and there's a height
requirement. We'll look at all of that.
Then you need to make sure that you have the system tagged on a 6-month basis. So because of the amount of cooking going on in restaurants, it has to be looked at least twice a year. We can mandate more if need, depending on what it looks like after the every 6 months. And if you have a fire sprinkler system, it too needs to be inspected twice or once a year. So you need to make sure that you call a licensed, reputable company, licensed with the state. They got to have a company license as well as an individual license to be able to look at it and tag it.
And we will look at their paperwork. We'll make sure it's been tagged properly. But here comes the issue. Oh, and then you have a fire alarm system. Same thing. Hasn't been tagged, hasn't been looked at. Fire alarm panel. This is just, I wanted to color red up here. This is all dependent upon you guys.
When you call these people that come in and look at your fire alarm system and to look at your sprinkler system, it's very important that you look at the paperwork they give you.
That's where your violations are. So just because they gave you a report doesn't mean it passed. You need to actually look at the report, look at the comments, and figure out why did it pass.
And if it did pass, why didn't it pass?
Was it your system is designed for a 6-burner, and now all of a sudden you have an 8-burner in there? It's not going to pass. All of a sudden you have 1 deep fryer, and now you've gone to 4 deep fryers. It's not going to pass. But if you're not reading the report, it prolongs things getting fixed. And the last thing you want is for somebody to come in and say, well, until you get this fixed, you can't use this, this piece of equipment. So you need to make sure that you read what is being said about your systems. Because a lot of times what happens is everybody signs it, throws it away and says, yeah, we're done, they're here, they tagged it. But they don't really read it to realize that it didn't pass. And then our guys come in 1 or 2 months later, figure out, well, you got to get this fixed, and then we get nobody told us. So just make sure that you read what you have. What I would recommend is that you keep a red file, or you keep on your computer top a file that says nothing but fire department or inspections or whatever. All of your reports that you get from us or from the building officials or anybody else, health department, stick it in that file. So that way if there's any questions
about what's going on when our inspectors get there,
you'll be able to go straight to that file. Put in your certificate of occupancy, put it in that file. So when our guys ask, can you show us your certificate of occupancy? You go straight to that file, click, oh, here it is, and you can show it to them. So that is a quick overview. If we kind of follow these directions, like I said, this will cover probably 90-95% of our guys coming in there and giving you a clean bill of health.